Today, we talk about why IKEA never has windows. Imagine this. It's Saturday morning. You need exactly one thing: a bookshelf. You've already picked the model online. You know where the store is. You've even promised yourself you'll be back home before lunch. Easy. You park outside IKEA, walk through the entrance, grab a yellow shopping bag, and step inside. 3 hours later, you're walking back to your car carrying candles, a plant, a new lamp, kitchen containers, a blanket, frozen Swedish meatballs, and somehow you completely forgot why you came in the first place. Sound familiar? Because if it does, you're not alone. Millions of people experience exactly the same thing every single week. Most of them blame themselves. I just have no self-control. I always buy too much. I get distracted. But what if that's not the real reason? What if the building itself quietly influenced almost every decision you made, long before you even looked at the price tags? Because IKEA doesn't simply sell furniture. It designs experiences. Experiences that have been refined for decades by architects, psychologists, designers, and retail experts. And strangely enough, one of the smartest parts of that system is something you almost never notice: the windows, or rather, the lack of them. The first time someone points it out, you can't unsee it. Walk through almost any IKEA store in the world. You'll find enormous showrooms, artificial living rooms, perfectly designed bedrooms, entire apartments recreated indoors, restaurants, warehouses, play areas, escalators, endless lighting, but almost no windows. At first glance, that seems strange. After all, natural light makes spaces feel larger, more welcoming, more comfortable. Architects usually try to bring sunlight inside. IKEA seems to do the opposite. So, naturally, people began searching for explanations. Maybe windows are expensive, maybe they waste energy, maybe furniture fades in sunlight. Then another theory appeared, a much more interesting one you've probably heard before: IKEA removes the windows. So customers lose track of time. It's an incredibly popular explanation. It sounds clever, it sounds believable. And honestly, part of it probably is. Your brain constantly measures time without asking for permission. The changing brightness outside, the angle of the sun, the color of the sky, tiny environmental signals that you almost never consciously notice. Remove them, and time suddenly becomes much harder to estimate. That's one reason casinos rarely have windows or visible clocks. The less guests think about time, the longer they stay, and the longer they stay, the more money they usually spend. It's tempting to believe IKEA simply copied that strategy. But here's where the story becomes much more interesting. Because the missing windows are not the secret. They're only the first clue. Let's rewind. Forget the windows for a moment. Think about what happens the second you enter the store. Did you decide where to go, or did IKEA decide for you? Most people believe they're freely walking around. In reality, their journey has already been designed. Notice what happens. The entrance doesn't immediately lead you into a warehouse or a giant room filled with products. Instead, you're invited into someone's home: a living room, warm lighting, soft colors, books carefully placed on shelves, blankets folded perfectly, plants, family photos, coffee cups. Nothing feels like a supermarket. Nothing feels like a warehouse. Everything feels strangely real. Then you continue walking. Another apartment, another bedroom, another kitchen, another office. Without realizing it, you've already stopped shopping. You've started imagining. And that's exactly what IKEA wants, because people don't buy furniture. People buy a picture of a better future. They don't see a chair. They see themselves reading a book beside a window. They don't see a dining table. They imagine birthdays, Christmas dinners, Sunday mornings, a better life. IKEA isn't selling wood. It's selling possibility. And once that mental shift happens, everything changes, because logic quietly steps aside, emotion takes over. The purchase stops being, "Do I need this?" and becomes, "I want my home to feel like this." That's a much easier question to answer, especially when every room you enter seems to tell another beautiful story. But even that still isn't IKEA's smartest trick. There's a reason why walking through IKEA feels effortless, almost relaxing, even when you've been inside for over an hour. Because unlike most stores, IKEA rarely asks you where you want to go. It gently answers the question for you. From the very first step, you're guided along a carefully planned route. Living rooms become dining rooms become kitchens, kitchens become bedrooms, bedrooms become bathrooms, bathrooms become home offices. Everything flows naturally into the next. It almost feels accidental. It isn't. Retail designers sometimes refer to this idea as the long natural way, not because customers are trapped, but because every extra minute creates another opportunity, another product, another idea, another small decision. Imagine you came to buy one bookshelf. By the time you reach the shelving department, you've already walked past hundreds of products. A lamp catches your eye. You remember your bedroom could use better lighting. A small side table suddenly seems useful. You notice a storage basket, actually. That would make the living room look cleaner. None of these purchases were planned, but none of them feel random either. Each product quietly solves a problem you didn't know you had, until IKEA showed it to you, and that's one of the company's greatest strengths. It rarely convinces people to buy things they don't want. Instead, it convinces them to notice wants they hadn't considered before. That's a very different kind of persuasion. Have you ever noticed how little price tags matter inside an IKEA showroom? Of course they're there, but they aren't the first thing you see. Instead, you notice warm lighting, natural colors, books, blankets, plants, family photos, laptop screens, coffee mugs, tiny details that have absolutely nothing to do with the furniture itself. Because IKEA understands something surprisingly simple. People struggle to imagine empty spaces, but they instantly connect with finished stories. Every showroom tells one, not the story of a sofa, the story of a young couple moving into their first apartment, not the story of a desk, the story of someone finally building the perfect home office, not the story of a children's bed, the story of family life. You're not shopping anymore. You're mentally living inside these rooms. Psychologists often describe this as mental simulation. Your brain begins experiencing a future version of your life before you've bought a single product. And once that future feels emotionally real, buying the objects that create it suddenly feels much easier. That's why IKEA rarely displays products in isolation. Because isolated products require imagination. Finished rooms create it for you. Now pay attention to what usually happens after about an hour. Your legs are getting tired. You've made dozens of decisions. Your brain is working harder than you realize. Researchers call this decision fatigue. Every product you've looked at required a tiny mental calculation. Do I like it? Do I need it? Will it fit? Can I afford it? Hundreds of small choices slowly drain your mental energy. Most stores have a problem at this point. Customers leave, IKEA does something different. It feeds you, literally, somewhere near the middle of the journey. You suddenly smell food, Swedish meatballs, fresh cinnamon buns, coffee. The restaurant appears almost exactly when many visitors begin slowing down. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. Either way, the effect is remarkable. You stop, you sit down, you recharge, you laugh with your family, you check your shopping list, you relax, and then, instead of leaving, you continue. The shopping experience has quietly reset itself. Whether this was originally designed with psychology in mind or simply evolved over time, the outcome is undeniable. The restaurant isn't separate from the IKEA experience. It has become part of it. That allows the story to continue. And by the time you leave the restaurant, you're only halfway through the store. That's when something even more interesting begins. Because now, you finally arrive at the warehouse and suddenly, everything changes. After walking through perfectly designed homes, dreaming about a better apartment, and stopping for lunch, you finally arrive somewhere that looks completely different. The warehouse, towering shelves, industrial lighting, concrete floors, flat-packed boxes stacked almost to the ceiling. At first, it feels like you've left IKEA, but in reality, you've just reached the final stage of its strategy. Because by now, the decision has already been made. The showroom created the desire. The warehouse simply lets you act on it. Instead of asking an employee to bring you a product, you pick it up yourself, you load it onto your cart, you become part of IKEA's logistics system. That one decision changes everything. It keeps prices lower, it speeds up operations, it reduces staffing costs, and it allows millions of customers to move products through the store with remarkable efficiency. It's not just smart retail, it's smart engineering. Every step you've taken since entering the building has been preparing you for this exact moment. But IKEA's real genius doesn't stop inside the store, because the moment you lift that flat-packed box into your cart, you're participating in one of the most influential business ideas of the last century. Most furniture used to be transported fully assembled, large, heavy, expensive. IKEA asked a simple question. What if customers assembled it themselves? That single idea transformed almost every part of the business. Smaller packages, more products per truck, lower shipping costs, cheaper storage, lower prices. And suddenly, furniture became accessible to millions of people who could never have afforded it before. People often think IKEA became successful because of stylish Scandinavian design, or low prices, or clever marketing. The truth is much bigger. Its success comes from hundreds of interconnected decisions, each one making the next decision stronger. Remove just one, and the system becomes less effective. Let's go back to the question we started with. Why doesn't IKEA have windows? Here's the surprising answer, because it's the wrong question. The windows were never the strategy. They were one piece of a much larger machine, a machine designed to guide, inspire, simplify, and gently encourage exploration. The missing windows help create a controlled environment. The one-way path increases product exposure. The showrooms turn products into dreams. The restaurant gives customers a chance to reset. The warehouse makes purchasing effortless. The flat-pack system makes everything affordable. None of these ideas are revolutionary on their own, but together, they create something incredibly difficult to copy. That's what makes IKEA extraordinary. Not one brilliant trick. Hundreds of small decisions working perfectly together. The next time you walk into IKEA, don't rush toward the furniture. Slow down, look around. Notice how every room leads into another. Notice how every display tells a story. Notice how naturally you keep moving forward. And then, look for the windows, or rather, notice that they're missing, because sometimes the most powerful business strategies aren't hidden inside boardrooms. They're hidden inside buildings, hidden in architecture, hidden in tiny decisions that most of us never even question. And maybe that's the biggest lesson IKEA has to teach. Great companies rarely win because of one revolutionary idea. They win because they obsess over hundreds of invisible details until the entire experience feels effortless. That's why millions of people don't just shop at IKEA. They experience IKEA, and once you see the system, you'll never walk through one of its stores the same way again. That's why. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.